lately I'm getting really excited about animating AI images created in Midjourney with Blender. This is probably not the best practice, but it's super effective and it's the quick and dirty way. So if you are an enthusiast for Midjourney and Blender, then this video is for you. Alright, so I created this image in Midjourney. Just a very simple description. Fantastic waterfall in lagoon, morning meditation, woman, translucent. Didn't really work. Shiny and contemplation. That's what I put there. But yeah, it's a pretty cool image, and I thought it would be great if I can animate a bit. It doesn't have to be a lot, but just give the camera a bit of a movement and maybe animate the water. So that's what we're gonna try to do. For that, we need to jump into Photoshop first, and we will just cut out the things which are in the foreground, which might move with the camera, and then it shifts with the background. So that we need to cut out. And with Photoshop, this is super easy because we can select these areas. Let's use this tool here, and plus, gonna add this stuff. Okay, so now we selected these from the lagoon, like these areas which are more in the foreground. And in order to make this work the best way, we need to make sure that the selection is slightly larger. So we modify the selection and expand it. Let's try to expand it by 2. Let's see if that works. Looks quite decent. Now we can go here into fill, content aware fill, and it already shows me how that image could look like without, and I think it's pretty good. So you have different options here. You can mirror stuff, you can test a bit yourself. You can also put that in a new layer. We need 2 images. We need one where we have these things intact, and then we need one where we cut it out, where we cut it away. I would say, okay, that's, for me, that's perfectly fine. Now I just save that as a separate image. Actually, this is a PNG. The original is a PNG, and we just make this new. Now we can already jump into Blender. Blender, I use Blender 3.4. Probably is already the next version out. The version's coming in like super fast, but it should work with even with an older version. It should be no problem. Okay, let's open this up and delete everything here. We don't need the light. We need a camera. The best way is to put the camera on a neutral position. It's easier. 0. Okay, now it's just looks straight into the Z direction. Y direction, sorry. And we pull it a bit back. Oh. Yeah. Now if we press 0, we can actually look at the view of that camera. And we add a plane. We're gonna orientate it to the view. We can scale it up, and we apply the scale. And now we can apply a material, and actually we only need to apply, we don't need to have this principal shader. We can go into the shader editor, and we just use a normal diffuse shader. An image as an input texture, and let's jump into the preview of the image. It's easier. Okay, now we open it, go to our folder. What we're gonna do first though is we put the original image here, the waterfall image. Okay, so now that looks like this. That's a bit distorted, but we'll fix that in a moment. We're gonna use the camera not just as a camera, but also as a we use this camera as a projector. So we project from that camera the image onto that surface. And how to do that is we just take the camera, take the plane. We use the surface where we project things on, and we add a UV project modifier. And in here we can specify the object which is the projector. In that case is our camera. We can also change that. Projector. Yeah, so we have this set up. If we go back to the modifier, we can now set the aspect ratio. Now the aspect ratio of our camera, or the output we want, is basically the normal HD size, which is, or the HD aspect ratio is 16:9. Now you can see that it actually repeated here, but we don't see that because we only see what's within the camera at the moment. Look here from outside. That's how it looks when we rotate out of the camera view. Now, in order to animate the water, we need a plane which comes out horizontally. So I would just copy this. You can see it will still kind of capture what the image, and we rotate it around the x-axis. Opala, that didn't work. Rotate around the x-axis, and we can move that. Now that doesn't look at all how it should work. Also, it doesn't align with the water edge here. So what we need to do is we need to bring that down first. Just move it down here. Roughly, it doesn't have to be perfect. Again, this is the rough, quick and dirty way to do it. And then now you see that it looks all a bit strange here. So what we need to do is go here into subdivide. And we can subdivide it. And we can subdivide it even more if we want. Oops. Now that looks much better. It's very distorted, but it works within the camera. So if we go through if we look at the camera, press 0, then you can see that we have the water aligned. So now you don't see any difference between. So you don't see that there's a surface in here. But when we select it, we can see that it actually stops here. So I think you already get the point. Now what we need to do is we need to somehow model these items so we can separate them. I do that, just go back to 0. Now I would just copy this again and then just very quickly model these things here. Again, this is quick and dirty. I'll take this whole thing, bring it down. We want to create a surface which is able to divide as good as possible. Oh yeah, by the way, so what I'm using here is, first of all, you need to be in edit mode. I'm using Control R to create these subdivisions. Of course, you can always improve it, but at the end, nobody will look so close. It's more the overall effect which counts. And we can cut it with the wheel. I can add more divisions. With the mouse wheel, I can add more divisions, and then also will help to project the image better. The more equal that is, the better is for the projection. Go out here. So this is done. We Oh yes. I also want to apply the scale, and then now let's copy this. Same procedure. I'm using G to move points, and then the axis in which I want to move. So for example, in that case, I press G and then X to just align to a certain axis. Okay, I think that's pretty good. And now here, that bit. we are ready. So, okay, this is all scaled. Oh, this one as well. Now, what we need to do is we need to actually bring that outside that surface here. These things, they need to be above that surface here, and then we need to shrink it basically. So, on how we could do that is, let's split the screen. Again, this is like a dirty trick. There are other ways to do that, but I thought it would be great to not use too many different software applications. But take a split. Let's split this here so we can see it better. So before we start, what we want now is that these objects here, and we are actually almost done. It's just now fitting it to the camera. These objects here are, these are the ones where we want to keep this original image, and then the water and the background is the new image we created. So if we now go here into the material, we can separate that material. Let's call this is a material 2. That's great. Let's call it no front. And we also want to change, we want to change that now. We want to change the image. So if we go here into, you could also, of course, do it in the shader. So basically we made a duplication of the material, and now we changed that material to no front. Now this image here has the new image applied, and then we do the same for the water. The water, which is then can choose. So if we turn the rest on again, you can see, okay, it's on a separate layer, but it's not visible now in the screen. And also they need to be, these planes need to be further to the camera in order to create the effect. You could take these and first of all push them back, roughly where we would think they are. I guess somewhere here where this image stops. That's a good spot. Maybe a bit too far. Now the problem is they're projecting something different, so we need to bring them back to the correct scale first of all, and correct position within the camera view. Do this like this. And now the most difficult one. I will keep a copy first because that helps me actually to locate it properly. Okay, I made a bit of a mistake, but it's easy fix. Just realized something. So I have my stuff here. So that's where we were somehow. This doesn't really work. The problem here is actually the angle doesn't really work here properly. It works somewhat, but not as good as I hoped. It's somehow there. Now we can turn off the projector. If we go here into viewport display, the passepartout, we can turn it off, and then we see where we are, and it's not yet 100% there. So we actually would need to push it further up in order to be out of the water, and then this where the problem starts. So what we need to do is we need to actually shift the camera slightly in order for this to work. But then we have the problem that our image doesn't fit. So we need to also rotate our image slightly. There are other ways to do that, by the way. There's this tool, it's called F-Spy. This works very well with images, so you can exactly adjust or put the camera on the correct spot based on the image. So that would be the advanced version. You can take the plane, the first plane, this plane, and kind of rotate it slightly. So and it also means that we need to shift our water a bit. We also need to rotate the water slightly. And these objects, they need to be adjusted as well. That's pretty good. You almost can't see that this is cut out. I put the water in a way that it fits with this edge here. There's a bit of a... So now if you turn it off, you can see it all fits quite nice. Yeah, that does the trick. just slightly increase the size here. Okay, I think that's now pretty good. It's always a bit like a fiddle task. This here, let's see if we can also increase that a bit. Yes, that's what it needed. So we basically recreated the image again. Now we have these elements all separate. It's pretty cool. By the way, in the viewport, we need to also make sure that, so if we are in Eevee, of course you can use cycles. Normally bloom effect is not bad. It's not a bad idea. Also, when we animate stuff, then motion blur is, I would add that definitely. But we don't want to animate the projector. What we animate is actually a second camera. So we can copy this with Ctrl-0. We can make this camera our new camera. Also, we need to fix the colors. The colors are not correct here. Just go on the color on the background to 0. To white, then we're back on the original. And of course you can add post processing, of course. But now if we animate this, let's say we move the camera, you can see, of course we cannot move too much, but if we zoom in, it has a pretty cool effect. So it works really well. Although there's some limitations to that, but I think it's pretty good. Nowadays, what we could do with this now is we could animate the water. How to do that? It's just a simple trick again. We have a lot of subdivisions already. We could add here wave. And how that works, the best way probably is to subdivide it also first again. Add some subdivision before that. So we have the subdivision. Then you see that just adds a bit more detail, and then we can control the height here. So if we look at this in a mesh form, so we can change the height to a bit less, no fall off. Let's go into the timeline. We can see it a bit. That is too little. Oops, there it was. Something like that. And that will ripple outwards. It's a bit fast, and we can change the time. Speed much lower. That's too low. That's too slow. It's a bit too fast. And we can also offset the time. Means we start earlier before the animation starts, before the timeline starts. It's already rippling, and we can then also set the life on how long. Now it looks like this in the preview. And of course we can play with the height. Speed is too fast for me. Now to animate the camera, of course you can have auto keyframes, insert keyframes automatically. I like to do it manually, especially for camera movement. You can see now this is our projector. This is the camera, and we could just move that back a bit again. Insert keyframe, right click, insert keyframe, and then we could say by the half of the time. I mean, of course you can choose how long you want it, but by the half of the time there could be, or maybe somewhere here, the camera might move in quite a lot, but also moves down a bit. Here we're always a bit too close. You can see the cut, but I wouldn't worry too much. I mean, you can then always like refine your model, or do it like this. It's not so obvious. We can even rotate it a bit. If we add rotation, we also need to capture the rotation here. So we can do this, and then here we're gonna go slightly lower, and then maybe the camera moves, I don't know. So we add the rotation. It's a bit fast, so we could move this. You can move keyframes, by the way. It's pretty cool. And now, I mean, it's a bit slow. We can also duplicate keyframes. That's pretty cool. So we can place it here. So then everything what we captured here is back to the same position. The water could be a bit stronger. Let's make it a bit stronger here. Yeah, I think it works really good. Now we just need to export it. Export. You can choose the frame rates if you want. For a more cinematic look, the 24 frames are quite good actually. I like to export directly as a JPEG or as a AVI file. Raw files are huge, but we should try that. Of course, you can add any processing to your output if you want. That we can capture in another video. Now I just wanna go a bit through the camera as a last suggestion. I mean, there could be, of course, more particle systems, and you can add more light somewhere and light up certain things. That's also good. For example, we could add a light here. Point light. Of course, then you're gonna see all the mistakes. But I mean, there are different ways we could use that. So that could be something. You could add lights, more lights, or we could change the depth of field of the camera. That could be quite interesting. So if we, for example, we can either blur the background or the foreground. So how to do that? So we could go here, can turn off depth of field, and then choose a focus target. And we can, for example, choose the plane. That means then everything in front will be pretty out of focus. So that could actually help to get rid of the edges. It's a question of how crazy we go with it, or we can do the opposite. Again, then it comes down to how exactly we model the things. And now it would be always good to have everything named, because I didn't do that. But I know that my plane 5 is the lady, so now the lady is sharp and the rest is blurry. Actually, that could be pretty cool as well. And it works probably even better. And you can also, of course, animate. Last thing I want to change. I don't like that. Some people like that it starts slow and becomes faster. I don't really like that, or slower than at the end. So let's go into the graph editor and see what we can do here. Seems like the projector. Let's go to linear. Let's change everything to linear first. We did that with with T. Typing T. Can change it back if you want. This could be smoother, so let's change that back to. Alright, I think it's pretty awesome. There's so many, especially if you are good with mesh modeling, you could make it much better than I did. You could also cut out the area. You could cut out these images in Illustrator, for example, and bring them in as planes already, very nicely cut out. That's also an option, and then animate that. But yeah, I think it's quite interesting what you can do with Blender and Midjourney together. See you in the next video.